In this video, we're going to deliver some very important coaching tips for vertical jump training on a V8 system that every coach and athlete is going to want to know prior to using VertiMax for the first time. After an athlete goes through the proper warm-up procedure, the first time they use a V8 system for jump training, you want to get them on the platform and do not connect any bands. You want them to do some jumps without any load attached to their body so they get a feel for the platform, and you want to make sure they have proper landing technique. And here's what you want to do. Get the athlete on the platform, have them do 5 to 10 jumps, and make sure the athlete is looking straight ahead. Athletes have a tendency to look down at their feet the first time they get on VertiMax to see where they are on the platform. You don't want to do that because when we jump, we don't look at our feet, we look straight ahead. So have the athlete do about 5 to 10 jumps. And a couple things you want to watch for while they're doing this is you want them to have a smooth, consistent rhythm. Most athletes, when they jump, are going to do 2 things wrong. They're going to have an inconsistent jumping rhythm, and they're going to land very stiff-legged. I'm going to show you 5 jumps now that are not going to have a consistent rhythm, and I'm going to be stiff-legged when I land. And you're going to hear it when my feet make contact with the platform that I'm not absorbing the shock when I hit. This is what an athlete will typically do the first time they jump. So based on what you just saw, what do we want to correct, which will be typical with most athletes? First of all, the rhythm. The primary reason to correct the rhythm issue is to take full advantage of the plyometric training. This is basically a plyometric exercise. And to take full advantage of a plyometric exercise, by definition, you want to initiate the muscle contraction as soon as possible after the eccentric elongation of the muscle completes. You don't want a long time delay between that concentric contraction, so you can convert the potential energy stored in that stretched muscle into kinetic energy and develop more power in that upward explosive movement. If there's a long time delay between when you land and when you jump, that stored potential energy in the muscle is going to dissipate very quickly, and you're going to lose it on the next jump. So you want to minimize the time delay between the end of the elongation, muscle elongation, and the beginning of the contraction for the explosive upward movement. And now the landing. You want the athlete to begin absorbing shock as soon as possible when their feet make contact with the mat. One thing I tell athletes to help them imagine how they should be landing is imagine if you're on a stool in bare feet and you jump off into broken glass. When your feet hit that glass, you're going to try to absorb all the shock you can so that the glass is not driven into the feet on impact. It's kind of the same thing with the mat. When you land, you want it quiet. Nice and quiet. Absorb that shock and explode right into the next jump. And you have a better rhythm, and then it's also safer too because you don't want to land stiff-legged. So make sure before you connect any load to the athlete that they can jump consistently with a smooth rhythm and quietly. They're absorbing shock. You're going to hear very little noise when an athlete is landing properly. And also, don't forget the head position. You want to be looking straight ahead. You're going to see a lot of athletes do this, their head straight down. That's not an actual jumping position with your head down. So make sure they look straight ahead and they get a feel for the platform. And once they do that and they can put together a number of jumps consistently, landing softly and exploding again quickly, they're ready to add a load. Now, another very important point for coaches to recognize, specifically when you're training women, is to watch for pronation in the knees when they bend. If you see those knees angling inward, that's a dangerous thing. You've got to watch for that pronation because it's something we want to correct. So you want to watch for the very first time when an athlete is equating herself with VertiMax, when she's performing those initial jumps with no load. If you see the knees pronate like that, that's something you've got to correct because she's probably doing that in competition. And typically when you're landing on 2 legs and you pronate, you've got some stability because you've got 2 feet on the ground. But if that girl is a female volleyball player and she's jumping and lands on 1 leg and her leg pronates, that's where you have a very high tendency to tear ACLs, and that's why women have so many ACL injuries, is because of that pronation. And when they land on 1 foot and there's no way to stabilize their weight, the ACL tears. So it's very important when a female athlete jumps, whether it's on solid ground or VertiMax, if you see the knees pronate like that, you've got a problem. You've got to correct it. You've got to get those knees in their proper position. If you don't do that, they're going to have a much higher chance of getting injured in competition.